What is this stuff?
Nintendo water. You see, in this universe, the 64DD was so beloved, the CEO of Dasani decided to sell out the company to Nintendo out of pure admiration. Add in a few mushrooms, and voila, you get that.
Yeah, well, drinking this makes me glad they made the Wii U in our universe. How long until we can get back to our reality?
Have some patience, kid. The multiverse retrieval device takes some time to fire up. We'll be out of here before you know it.
What time is it?
Let's see. It's 6 a.m., April 30th, 2021.
April 30th, but you just arrested me a few hours ago on March 10th.
We're in another dimension, kid. Time works differently all throughout the multiverse.
April 30th. Hey, today's the day new Pokemon Snap is supposed to come out. Maybe it still comes out in this universe as well. I should have guessed. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering why this game is here instead of new Pokemon Snap. Well, to answer your question, we need to look back at the history of the original Nintendo 64 game. The story begins in 1995. HAL Laboratories, a studio with close ties to Nintendo, most famously known for being the home of the Kirby franchise, was busy at work on a new game to be released for the disc-based add-on to the Nintendo 64, the 64DD. The game was known as Jack and the Beanstalk. Like Pokemon Snap, this would be a game where you take photos, presumably on rails. The game has never been shown to the public, so the rest of the details are fairly unclear. However, we do know a couple of things. Obviously, as the name implies, it probably would have taken inspiration from the classic fairy tale, Jack and the Beanstalk, in which the titular character climbs a giant beanstalk to the clouds and encounters a giant. Like this story, the game also would have utilized the 64DD's built-in system clock, using some sort of mechanic in which the player could plant seeds and watch them grow in real time. Nowadays, there are a plethora of games that can have plants grow and buildings be constructed in real-world time, so this seems fairly insignificant at first glance. But back then, on cutting-edge hardware in the mid-90s, this would have been a true novelty. However, development of the game was troubled. Despite its fantasy inspirations, the team reportedly was having trouble figuring out a drive for the project. Sure, the game was about taking photos, but why were you taking photos? What were you taking photos of? I mean, the game was based off of a book from 1807. It made no sense. This is when the late but legendary former Nintendo CEO Satoru Iwata stepped in. He suggested to the team that they turn the game into a spin-off of a franchise Nintendo partially owned, called Pokémon. At the time, Pokémon was still relatively young, but was exploding in popularity. The video games, released in 1996, took the world by storm, and almost single-handedly revived the aging Game Boy line, and an anime based on the series was helping cement its cultural status into everyone's collective minds. With the series having a focus on researching cute animals, it was a no-brainer. A game simply about taking photos of these creatures in 3D would be a guaranteed hit. So, after this suggestion, the team quickly revamped their project into Pokémon Snap, released in 1999 on the Nintendo 64. By this point, just about everyone who was developing a DD project had jumped ship to the original Nintendo 64 system instead, as it was releasing too late into the life cycle. So, any DD features that were originally present had to be cut. It is unknown whether the idea of growing seeds ever made it into the Pokémon version of the game, but it would have been thrown out regardless. Because of this, the only traces of its fairy tale origins are in the opening sequence. In Snap's opening titles, a development team named Jack and Beans is credited. This was the name of the internal team in HAL that developed Snap, a holdover from its early days, and a reminder that somewhere in an alternate timeline, Jack and the Beanstalk was made instead. Maybe the gameplay will be a little similar still.